Welcome to the Money Mastermind Show. Let's talk money.
Welcome to the Money Mastermind Show. Have you ever wished that you could make some extra money, but you really just weren't sure how? Where do you start? Where do you begin? Well, tonight we have Eric Rosenberg of personalprofitability.com, and he is going to help us figure out how to make our first dollar and all the dollars after that. Welcome to our show, Eric.
Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here. Round
Absolutely.
2 with this Motley crew.
You can never get enough Motley Crue.
Totally not. I mean, I agree.
Anywho, and we also, of course, have the cast of the Money Mastermind Show. We have Kyle Prevost of youngandthrifty.ca, Miranda Marquette of Planting Money Seeds, Tom Drake of the Canadian Finance Blog. Peter Anderson isn't with us tonight, but he is of Bible Money Matters, and I'm Glenn Craig of Free From Broke. So, side hustle, making our first dollar. You hear this word side hustle all the time. What in the world is a side hustle? I mean, it kind of sounds like this word hustle sounds almost dirty these days. What do you mean by a side hustle? Can you help us out there, Eric?
Sure. So a side hustle is more or less a job that you create for yourself outside of your day job. So let's say you have your 9 to 5 or you're like most of us these days and it's more like an 8 to 6 or a 7 to 7. You have your hours in the office, then you go home at the end of the day or on weekends and you build websites. That's one thing that I do that got me started, or freelance writing, or doesn't have to be online. You could be mowing lawns, or if you're up in Canada, like some of our friends there in different seasons, shoveling snow, gardening, housekeeping. Warren Buffett's first job was delivering papers. He did that on the side while he was still in school. So it's any kind of way that you hustle, work hard to make money outside of your primary income.
So, I mean, we work hard during our regular jobs, or our supposed 9 to 5s that, like you said, end up being 7 to 7s. I mean, why bother putting the extra effort into a side hustle?
Well, there's two big benefits, and they both come back to that money part. And it's not because it's just like fun to go do work, though. If you find something you really love, it can be. But we can talk more about that later. But the biggest benefit, so one short-term benefit, you have extra money coming in. You could save that for an emergency fund or to pay off credit cards or student loans. You can put together a house down payment fund. It's not cheap buying a house these days. So you can use it for long-term financial goals as extra money that you're not counting on. You're counting on that day job money to live, to pay your expenses, to pay your bills, to feed your family and yourself. Extra money, extra things you can do with it. So that's one big benefit. Another benefit is you're creating a diversified income stream. So, the most famous story of a friend who went through this that we all know is Pat Flynn. One day he went into work at his architecture firm. That was his passion, his career, and the firm was having money troubles and they had to lay him off, which is a huge bummer. So he went home and started this business on the internet. But if he were like I had been one day when I went into work and they told me it was my last day, this happened a few years ago, I was actually walking out of the office smiling a little bit thinking, I don't have a job that I don't like anymore, but I have money coming in on the side. It's not enough to fully support my family. It wasn't at that point, but I wasn't like so worried. And the days of having 20, 30-year careers at the same company are for the most part gone. There's no pensions anymore. Financially, you're better off moving between companies, and companies don't have that loyalty to their employees anymore like they used to. They're not necessarily going to want to keep you around for 20 or 30 years. So having something to fall back on just in case is a great idea.
Yeah, and I really like that point because for me, one of the big issues is income diversity. How many income streams do you have coming in? Because like you said, I mean, the new economy is such that you probably won't be at the same job for 30 or 40 years. I mean, my dad's been at the same job for, oh gosh, probably close to 30 years, but that's not happening anymore. So having that income diversity and being able to say, well, I've got some different money from different places coming in is really important as far as your financial security goes.
I like the idea of having that cushion too, so you don't have to panic, and you've got a little leeway. You got some room to make some choices, and you don't have to jump into, let's say, another job that maybe you hate even more, or you're doing it out of desperation as opposed to doing it because it's the right fit for you.
And if you have an emergency fund, it gives you some extra runway time too. Because let's say you're making $1,000 a month on the side, and you have 6 months living expenses in the bank. Maybe all of a sudden that 6 months becomes 7 or 8 months of expenses.
Yeah, $1,000 a month. That sounds pretty good. I'm sorry, Kyle. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and Glenn, you can obviously chime in here as well. I like the change of pace. I had fortunate enough to have one of the few jobs that some folks do stick around in for several decades as a teacher. But I really like the challenge of doing a side hustle, and I haven't become extra good at any one specific side hustle yet, but I've learned a ton about different skills and met a bunch of different people from all walks of life that I certainly wouldn't have done had I just stuck in my classroom.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly adds an interest to your life, if nothing else, right? And it's a hobby that if you develop it into a hobbity, hobbit,
Hibbity hobbity hoo.
yeah.
Sounds like a Disney song.
So if you develop it into that, it's certainly something that's useful, right? I mean, how many of us have hobbies that we call hobbies, but I mean, it's another word for wasting time or taking up time, right?
Well, a lot of hobbies can be really expensive. My newest hobby that I had picked up recently, in April, I finished my private pilot license, so I can fly little planes around. So look out upwards when you hear me coming over. But on a serious note, it's not a cheap hobby. It's pretty expensive to fly planes around. But let's say, I'll just use this as an example. It's not something I'm doing, but if you're like really into flying, like that is your thing, you could make that hobby not just an expense source, like sailing, any outdoor activity you can think of could be a hobby. Curling, that's not outdoor, but it's an awesome sport that I got to do once. It's expensive to do all these things, and if you are totally passionate about it and totally love it, you can start tweeting about it, doing social media about it, then build a blog around it, and link to products that are related to your hobby. And now all of a sudden you have a website that's a side hustle. It's making you a little money, and it's about something you already love. So if I started an aviation website where I did videos and pictures and wrote about new kinds of planes and what kind of flight insurance. This is actually my flight insurance paperwork sitting here. It came in the mail. All this stuff that's like boring, but a lot of people need to know about that. And if you have a passion in something, chances are there are a lot of people that share that same passion. So if you can capitalize on that passion to make it something not only that's work on the side, but something you really love and enjoy, which is, it makes us probably all sound nerdy being personal finance writers and podcasters and videoers. That's something we were all passionate about. That's why we're doing this here today. So whatever you're passionate about can become a side hustle.
I like the idea of turning a hobby into sort of a side hustle, because like sites like Etsy were pretty much built off of all these crafty people that like to do this stuff anyways. So now they get to sell it.
And even more than that, I mean, if you look at Etsy, it's actually created. It's not just Aunt Millie who's making scarves, but people are building up. They're going in to build a business. They're going in to say, I wouldn't have been able to scale up this in any other way until Etsy came along, right? All this technology is making this now possible for a person to take their own skills and actually make it even more. So let's go into this. You started talking about it, Eric. You could build a website, you could do social media. Like, how does a person go about making that first dollar in a side hustle? Like, what do you do? I mean, it sounds great, but
totally. Yeah. So that first dollar, I'm glad you brought that up. That's a really, really important milestone. Because you reach into your pocket, if you have your wallet in your pocket, you probably have $1 in there. Or if you're like me today, you don't really carry cash anymore. You have credit cards and things because you want rewards points. You don't have to pay for plane rides when you can do it for free. But $1, it's not that significant of amount of money to most people. But if you can earn $1, you can earn a second dollar and a third dollar and a fourth dollar, and all of a sudden you're making a little bit of money. So don't be intimidated and think, I can't get rich doing this. Really just start by focusing on that first dollar, because that's what started it all. If I hadn't earned my first dollar on the side, now coming up on 10 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to leave my day job 3 months ago and made this a full-time career. So it's not an overnight thing. Don't think side hustles are generally a get-rich-quick thing, because they're not. But when you want to earn that first dollar on the side, you have a couple different routes to go. So one, or let's say 3 different primary routes. So route number 1, you make and sell something, or you buy and resell something. So it's objects, something physical, it's a product. Etsy is a great example of that, or fulfilled by Amazon businesses are a growing thing. If you're familiar with the Dynamite Circle, I know there's a lot of FBA kind of people in there, so that's a great place to learn more about that. If you Google FBA business, you'll find a lot of information. So there's a lot of different avenues, whether it's the creative, I'm going to make something and sell it on Etsy route, or the I'm going to have something made or buy something and resell it route. So the second avenue is a service-based business, like we were talking about at the beginning. I build websites and do freelance writing. That's become my primary income. But could be lawn and garden care. It could be delivering newspapers. It could be maybe you want to be a masseuse, or you're totally into the occult and you are an awesome tarot card reader, and you're that lady setting up a booth at the farmer's market on Saturdays. You're making a few bucks. There's lots of different services that you can do. All you really need to do a service is have a customer and a way to deliver it. There's nothing special and fancy. And if you're good at something, do it. The third route, like we were getting at, is the online route. So starting a website around your passion and your hobby. The trick to that, to really make money, you need something that is saleable, related to what you are into. You don't have to be the one doing the selling. So let's say, going back to the aviation example, there's a really cool, it's more out of YouTube, but they have a website. Guy, it's called Flight Chops. If you Google it, you'll find him. He's called that because he flies planes and has awesome chops. So he built this brand around making aviation videos on YouTube. And once a month he does a giveaway, and they're sponsored giveaways, like Bose headphones I saw featured this last month, and different things that pilots might need, knee boards like Jeppesen products. I'm not going to go too far down the rabbit hole on aviation stuff, but you get the idea. There's products related to aviation that every pilot needs, and the companies that make that stuff might be willing to pay, I'm sure they pay him quite a bit of money to get their products out in front of his audience. So if you have an audience, if you can build a following, you can make direct relationships with companies like that. Or let's say you want to sell the headphones, but you're not big enough to work with Bose directly, but you see they're for sale on Amazon. Amazon's keeps coming up. There's at the top, when I log into Amazon, there's a little bar right along the top that lets me make an affiliate link that I can put on my website, and if someone buys the product or any product by clicking through my link, I get a little commission. So that's another way to make money on a website. Or you can, if you go to websites, you see Google ads, or there's lots of different ad networks, but Google's the biggest. You can put those on your site, and if you have a ton of traffic and a lot of volume going through your website, those little clicks, they might be 3 cents, they might be no cents, they might be $1.50. It depends on what product you're advertising through your site, which you don't pick the advertiser, it's automated. But all those clicks add up, and there's people who make thousands of dollars and make their whole living just on those clicks adding up. So there's a lot of different ways to do it online, but you don't have to go online. It's just the way that this group of people went, because that's something we know and we're good at and we enjoy. So don't feel limited that you're not techie, you can't do it online. But if you do feel like you're inspired and you know how to get a website set up, or know people who can help you do it, that's a great outlet as well for virtually any hobby.
You've certainly talked about a lot of different options there, and that's great. But it also sounds like it could be a ton of effort. Like how do I go about doing all that when I'm working my 9 to 9 job right now? It's even longer than it was before. How do I find the wherewithal and what's my skill? How do I time for it? And like how do I find a customer that's willing to give me $1? How do you work all that?
Well, they I guess it's the saying, they didn't build the Great Pyramids in a day, or there was something that they didn't build in a day.
Rome.
It was Rome. That's right, Rome. Something on the other side of the ocean. Yeah, so Rome wasn't built in a day, and like I said, neither was my online income. It was built over a decade. So again, focus on that first dollar. Don't focus on, I need 100,000 people to come to my website so I can make a bunch of money. Start small. And what really makes it work, especially with the online gigs, if it's something you really care about and you're really passionate about, something that you would do for free, that's really the best way to do it. Because if it's something you would do for free, it doesn't feel like work. You come home and you're already going to Facebook. Let's say instead of just going to Facebook and looking at cat photos or something that your friends put up, you go to a group that is about something that you care about. So let's say someone shout out a hobby. It can be a totally random one. Doesn't matter.
Fly fishing.
Fly fishing. That's an awesome one. So yeah, totally not my thing. My brother-in-law loves fly fishing. We were on vacation last week. He spent 2 days standing on a river. It sounded so boring to me. I'd rather be working on my computer. But that's something that he loves. So fly fishing is a perfect example. You go on Facebook, search for Facebook groups about fly fishing. I bet you'll find dozens of them. Some that are going to be really big, really popular. Some that are going to be small, not have a lot going on. So go to one of those groups, find one that vibes with your, so that you like the people, you like what's going on. Just start answering questions and asking questions. Get involved so people start to recognize you. At the same time, you have your little website going on the side. You haven't told anybody yet in the Facebook group, and you start writing, how to tie your own fly from scratch. Is that a thing? Tying your own flies?
Yes, it is.
Or how to pick the right kind of fly for this river in Colorado or that river in Bozeman, Montana, or wherever people are going. You can make specific ones
the
that are
Salmon River in Idaho.
Salmon River in Idaho.
Come on, people. Come on, people. Let's do this.
Yeah. So let's say you want to go fly fishing, Salmon River in Idaho. I don't know anything about it. Let's say I'm taking a trip to a little town in Idaho that's by the Salmon River, and I want to go fly fishing.
You're going to
there.
Stanley, for God's sake. You're going to Stanley.
I'm going to Stanley, Idaho to go fly fishing.
Why would you know that?
But I don't know anything about fly fishing. I just know that there's good fly fishing on the Salmon River in Idaho. So I'm going to type it into Google and learn about it. If you've written an article that is exactly about what I'm looking for, odds are I might find it. And the more articles you write and the more people link to your site, the more people will find your site and your articles. But, so you wrote this article about Salmon River fly fishing in Idaho. You go to the Facebook group, someone's like, oh, I'm going fly fishing in Idaho. You'd be like, oh, cool, I just wrote an article about that. You might find it useful. Drop in a link. All of a sudden, you have some fans that have that shared interest starting to funnel in a little bit. And then maybe one of them clicks on an ad or they tell a friend about it. That's how it starts. When I started my website, my mom didn't even know how websites worked yet. So, my mom wasn't even reading my stuff. But I told a few friends about it, and they were reading it. And they're like, oh, this stuff's really helpful. It's helping me with my banking and my checking accounts and learning how to manage credit cards. That's the thing that I knew and I was passionate about and wanted to help people about. And over years and years, it's reached hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. But it all started with that first blog post. And that first dollar I made, 10 years ago, has grown to a full-time income. So don't discount that first dollar or that first $10 and that first fan and that second fan and the few people who join your community and become your friends of a shared passion, because that's where it all starts.
And I think that's a really good point when you're talking about how it's not going to happen overnight. What's that saying? That overnight success took 5 years. But I think it's a good point, though, because a lot of time people go in and they're like, okay, in 3 months I'm going to be raking in all this money and I'm going to have all these page views and it's going to be so amazing. But the reality is, for most people going into this, it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of time. And I think that you really need to be prepared for that. If you're going to start a side hustle, you need to be prepared and you need to mentally prepare for the fact that it takes work and it takes time and it's not just going to happen.
I mean, what's a reasonable time frame? How do I know I'm putting in this effort that it's successful, that it's really showing me something that's worthwhile, and that I should keep putting this effort in? I think it's easy to mention going down the rabbit hole to start doing that, and then you're not getting anything. You're kind of running to standstill.
It really depends on, I think, what your topic is and how niche it is. And if you really think you're putting in a good effort, let's say you put in 4 hours a week. Let's say Sunday afternoon, Saturday afternoon, whatever your religion the day off is. You take your religious day. But it's like for me, Saturday is religious day. That's the day I take off. So Sunday, I block out, let's say, 4 hours every Sunday that I'm going to work on my project, or 2 hours even. You could put in 20 hours in one day or 2 hours over 10 weeks. It adds up to the same amount of time. So don't think about it in terms of, if I haven't made $1 in 6 months, I'd imagine you should make $1 in 6 months. But don't put a bound on success based on time. Base it on how much time you put in. And if you feel like you've really given it a run and it's not working out, then you'll kind of know in your gut. And talk to some friends. Talk to some. You probably can find people like us. You can find all of our emails. Our websites are all listed on there. There's a contact form on all of our websites. So you ask one of us. Say, hey, I've been doing this for 6 months. Do you think what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? There's great communities out there. One of my favorites right now, Screw the 9 to 5. There's another called Entrepreneur on Fire. There's these great groups of people who have tens of thousands of members who all just want to do the same thing, and they'll help each other do it. So don't discount yourself if you feel like you're sitting in your own little cone of silence. The internet might be listening a little bit more than you realize, and bounce the ideas off other people. See what you can do to grow it further. Don't just give up right away, especially if it's something you're passionate about.
I like that point. About finding other people to ask. It's no longer the case where if you're building a business or doing something that you're doing it yourself. There's so much information, so many other ways to contact people that it's easy to get information there. And even if you're finding something that's maybe a rarer or smaller thing, there's still somebody else out there you could find and ask advice to.
Like we all have a mutual friend from the personal finance blogging world, JD Roth. When he started his blog, Get Rich Slowly, like 45 years ago, the internet was like coming out of fossils. Making fun of JD. He's a friend. I can do that. So
you do realize that he started Get Rich Slowly the same year I started writing about personal finance, right? So
you're way younger though.
Yeah, that was like a grade 6 science fair project.
What I was getting at here. So when JD,
I'm like as
that's
old
almost
as
a
he
few
is
presidents ago.
in internet years.
What I was getting at was when JD started Get Rich Slowly, there weren't all of these resources. He had to literally code. There wasn't a such thing as WordPress or Blogger, which we use WordPress for our sites. These softwares didn't exist. He had to code by hand HTML every single blog post and put them at the top of the old blog post to make a blog. It wasn't a word blog.
It wasn't actually that bad, but okay.
Well, just let me go with my point for the story. That's the way he.
Look, back in the day, we had to leave the house barefoot and walk to the library and use their computers.
That's right.
I had a bicycle that I rode to generate the power for my laptop.
And they were 2,400
I actually have a friend
ball.
who has a side hustle. That's his business. Actually, he makes and sells environmentally friendly exercise equipment and power generating bicycles. So. But back in
I'm sorry.
back when JD was around, and apparently Miranda when they started the internet with Al Gore, there weren't all of these resources. So what I'm really trying to get at, you're in an amazing time. The world, like, right here in my pocket, is a device that can give me the entire knowledge of the history of mankind. Like, that's pretty mind-boggling if you think about it. And if with one of these phones, if you can't start a website about something you love and find people who are also passionate about the same thing, you need to learn how to use this thing a little bit better. Go on Facebook, go on Twitter, use Wikipedia. Don't cite Wikipedia, cite the sources Wikipedia sources. That's what we learned in school.
Yeah, basic there.
Or if you can't find a site that is currently doing that and be like, I'm awesome, I'm passionate, I want to write for you, like for someone who maybe doesn't want to do the whole website thing, exactly the same thing what you're saying here. If you can't use that machine to do a little bit of search and convince people that you're passionate about whatever you're writing about, you're probably not the right fit for a side hustle then, because most people I know can do that. So.
And if you find something that there's really nothing out there about, and you're really into it, and you are an expert in it, then you have a real opportunity because you can be the first internet expert on it. And that's a pretty cool thing to do. So, but odds are someone's probably already doing something similar, but don't be discouraged by that. There's like 850 personal finance blogs right now, and we're all still doing fine.
Is that all?
I was going to say, it seems like there should be
850,000. I don't know. Should I add a couple zeros?
Oh my gosh,
Tom's associated with 850 of them. But you used the word before, niche. What do you mean by that? I mean, like, how do I know? I could be writing about something that, how is it going to get any exposure?
Sure. So the first website that I started, it ended with .blogspot.com because I didn't have resources like this and I didn't know better. Was a site. It was essentially just an online journal, and I just wrote about whatever came into my mind, and I was like, oh, this is going to be fun, and something like that. Unless your name is, I don't know. We were talking about like Joe Rogan or the 4-Hour Workweek guy. I'm blanking on his name.
Tim Ferriss.
Yeah, Tim Ferriss. If your name is Tim Ferriss, you can pretty much write whatever you want, and like 500,000 people are going to want to read it. But most of us aren't Tim Ferriss. Most people want something on a very specific topic. They don't care about you; they care about the topic. And by becoming an expert in that topic that they recognize, then they'll start to care about you. So start thinking not about you. Start thinking, how can I help teach people more about this topic? And if you have a topic that is narrow enough, it can become a recognized source for information on that topic. So like, I keep saying personal finance blogs. There's actually several of us are involved in an award show for the best personal finance websites out there. It's called the Plutus Awards. I actually designed that beautiful new website template
as part of wonderful. I love it.
What was my old side hustle and was now my career. But so in the Plutus Awards, we go through and we recognize there is a Plutus Award. That is one because Craig won one for a topic. That topic doesn't exist anymore, right? To win an award that category.
Yeah, they probably canceled it after.
No, we canceled it. Yeah, it did not make the cut.
I ruined
this
it
year.
for everybody.
It was best kept secret personal finance
But
blog.
hey, let's
Got
get it
the
out there.
secret out there.
The Money Mastermind Show, collectively, we won a Plutus Award.
For collaborative things. So
Yeah.
what I was getting at with this is there's all these different avenues we can go down. There's within personal finance, we have awards for best Canadian personal finance blog, best non-North American international personal finance blog, best tax-focused blog, best real estate-focused blog, best generational-focused blog. There's even within personal finance, which seems like a pretty narrow category, you can get even narrower. So whatever you're into, if you can narrow it down enough that there's a virtually unlimited supply of things you could write about still, but keeping it as tight as you can on what you're focusing on, that's the way I'm seeing people get really the best success starting new online side hustles. It's by being the best expert in that specific niche. Niche. Is there a right way to say that word, or is it like
If you're
tomato,
British,
tomato?
If you're British, you
Niche.
say niche.
Like schedule.
Schedule.
Jaguar.
They think it's aluminium. I was debating with a friend from England, like, should it be aluminium or aluminum? He said, well, I am from England. We invented English. And that was his argument. It's like, I guess you win that time. But maybe niche it is. But whatever that is,
It's
I
very
made my
nice
point.
to have it.
Nice.
Yeah, that was bad. I know.
Oh my gosh.
Next time I come on the show, am I allowed to have a drink with me? This feels
yes.
this feels like a totally appropriate place to have a
We love
scotch.
You're allowed
having
to drink them out of here.
we love having drinks.
I never won a Plutus Award. I can't drink out of one. I'm still working on it.
Living
Having my
legend of
bubble water.
wine.
Well, Eric, come on. Nominations are open. Get in there and let's go.
Everyone, nominate me for best awesome person. I don't know. That's not a
Before you go thirsty.
You could be the entrepreneur, category, dude.
That's a good one. Or freelance writer, though. I'm going against Miranda, who's like
Probably
the
not.
best.
I'm totally irrelevant now, so you're probably
we should
good.
just rename the award the Marquette Cup or something.
You do realize I've only won that once, right? I really haven't won that much.
That's because nobody truly knows how many things you write for.
I don't write for that many anymore. So let's get back to the topic at
Anyway,
hand,
back
shall
to
we?
me. No, I'm kidding.
No, one
Let's
last
talk
serious
about
question.
side hustles, people. Let's talk about side hustles.
One last question to close it out. So, we made our first dollar. We've maybe made a couple of other dollars. When do I get to kick back on a Caribbean island drinking Mai Tais and retire from my job off this side hustle? And should
Odds,
I? Is that a goal?
if it's a goal, and it's not for everybody. A lot of people are really happy with their full-time jobs. I don't want to knock anyone who's into it. I have a lot of friends who love what they do, and it's for most people that is going to be the way you will make the most of your income for your life. So don't think that every single person now is kicking back drinking Mai Tais, and I'm certainly not. I left my day job 3 months and a week ago, about today when we're recording this. And the first thing I did when I got home from my day job, I walked outside, I looked up at the clouds, I took in the sunshine because it was a rare sunny April day in Portland, Oregon, and I drove home and I sat down at the computer and I started working. You think it's this like really glamorous thing, like, yeah, I work online. And when you go to conferences, like last week I was in Chicago with Miranda, we were hanging out with other podcasters. We got to meet Kevin Smith. He'll be on my podcast next week. So.
And who got that for you? Who got that for you?
And has 2 thumbs and is pointing at herself right now. This girl.
Sorry, this is going to be like the best thing I've done for the whole year. It's just the way it is.
So when
This
you're
particular podcast.
yes, that episode was epic.
Oh, that one. Oh.
Because like Silent Bob himself came over. But so there's 2 weeks a year now. Podcast movement. I was just at, then FinCon, the financial blogger conference where we all met. I feel like a celebrity. Like that's a place like people recognize me. We're high-fiving friends down the hall. It is kind of glamorous that week. But the rest of the year, I'm sitting at the computer and I'm making the internet. So it's not as glamorous as you'd think, but there are some huge perks. Like 2 weeks ago, before I was in Chicago, I was working in Aspen, Colorado on vacation with my in-laws. And while my brother-in-law was off fly fishing, I was hacking away on the computer building websites. So it does require a lot of hard work if you want to leave your day job and do this as a full-time gig. But if you really work at it and it's really your dream and it's really something you're willing to put the work in and it's something that will work. If you have questions about if your business will work, a great book I recommend is The $100 Startup by Chris Guillebeau, another guy he still lives in Portland. I left. I live by the beach now. I guess there is some glamour to that. But it is hard work, and it is a business. It doesn't just happen by itself. And there are some awesome stories, like the 4-Hour Workweek type stories, where you get your Muse product and build up a business that will essentially run itself. But the vast majority of businesses are not passive income. They are work hard now to get the dividends later, which really means work hard now so you can work a little less hard later. And I'm still at work really hard stage. It doesn't. Websites don't build themselves and blog posts don't write themselves. So it takes me to do that. And if you really want to do it, though, there's nothing stopping you but yourself. You just have to put in the time and become a recognized expert in something that people want to pay you to do.
I'm sorry.
You made Miranda cry. That was so inspiring.
Eloquent.
I'm sorry, just think a recognized expert in something. It helps if you know something about whatever it is that something is.
Right here, I will give a free idea to people listening. Right now, you can't fall over in a website or a newspaper without seeing Pokemon Go written somewhere. That is a thing right now. This is your window, your moment. Probably not for a long haul, but if you bust your ass over the next, am I allowed to say ass on this show? I said it twice now. If you bust your explicitive for
It's okay. Peter
for weeks
will
and
take
weeks,
it out.
you can become the Pokemon Go expert. And there are tie-in advertising opportunities. Linked to on Amazon all the Nintendo DS games and the old Game Boy games. I still, if the people still play those, I found mine not too long ago.
Nintendo's just about ready to re-release the NES with some old school games on it. So yeah.
So yeah, these old Pokemon games from all the different generations of systems. That's an opportunity right now. It's like see a craze that you're into, jump on the bandwagon.
And I want to talk about use and just to kind of wrap it up a little bit. You use the word expert, and you don't even have to be an expert really. You just have to
fake it till you make it.
Well, not even to fake it though. You just have to know more than what the person looking for the information knows. If somebody's looking for information, I need to know this. Well, as long as you know this, you can succeed.
Like to me, Miranda is an expert in fly fishing on the Salmon River in Idaho. She could start a blog about that. If I want to learn about it, she'd write something. To me, that would be an expert resource because it's informed and she knows what she's talking about. So whatever, at least for snake fishing on the Salmon River in Idaho.
She knows more about where to go than you do.
I have no
right?
idea.
You might not keep going back to that source, right? Maybe she's got to up her skills, but at least for the time being, she's like, that's where I'm going to go.
And while I'm there, I see a link to a really cool fly that I've never seen before, and I click on it, and then it takes me to Amazon, and I buy some new slippers because mine are worn out, and then Miranda just made 6% of my slipper purchase because I went through her site.
7 cents.
Hey, and you know what? 7 cents.
On the way to the first dollar.
On your way to your first dollar.
That's it. This has been a lot of fun here. Let's get our final word where we go around and kind of sum things up on making your first dollar on the side hustle. Tom, what do you think about that?
Eric briefly mentioned it, but sort of the idea of not giving up. No matter what kind of side hustle you're doing, anything you're doing is better than just sitting on the couch all evening. So it's, even if you don't think it's going that well, I wouldn't give up too soon. Most of my business is built off of buying up people that have given up. So there's a lot of potential that people don't always see, and then just kind of keep going a little bit because it's certainly better than doing nothing.
Miranda, what's your final take on making money on the side hustle?
Yeah, I think it's just really important to realize why you're doing it. We talked a little bit earlier about money and everything else, and then also talked about passion. So why are you doing it? Are you doing this? Passion is nice, it's really good, and it can help you make some money. But if you're just going in for the money and you're like, well, I have to make X amount of dollars by this time period, then you probably will give up too soon. So having that passion and understanding why you're doing it. Are you doing it because you are very interested in the subject you're writing about? Are you doing it because you think you want to help people? There are lots of reasons to do it, and sometimes the money is not enough. So be clear about why you're doing it and go from there.
And Eric, if you'll close out our final word.
I just realized while you guys were talking that where I'm standing, my microphone makes it look like I have a really long beard. Just side note.
So for listeners out there, if you see a picture, his beard is not quite as long as what you think it is.
So it's a real final word. It's called a side hustle because it takes hustle. So don't expect the easy ride. Get out there and work. Use that free time. I forgot how long it's been because I canceled TV and I don't really watch a lot of it anymore. But there's a massive number of hours people sit every day and just zone out in front of the TV. And anytime anyone says the phrase "kill time," it hurts my heart a little bit. Don't kill time. Use time. You have 24 hours in the day. Let's assume you're a good sleeper and sleep 8 of it. Spend another 8 at work. That gives you 8 more hours, 5 days a week, and then 16 hours, 2 days a week, plus holidays. You can hustle. Of course, you're not going to spend every waking second hustling. You have to eat. You want to spend time with your family, do other things. But there's a lot of hours in the day, and don't put them to waste. Like Tom was saying, a lot of people just sit on the couch. Unless you're doing a couch review expertise, that's probably not a great use of your time. Use your time for something that you're passionate about, that you love, that can also make you money. Maybe your hobby will become like my hobby, which is making money. That's what I say my hobby is over anything else. So find whatever your passion is and go for it. Start. There are thousands of people out there who are trying to read books and do courses and try to become the biggest expert ever in what they want to do before they start. The thing that you could have different from them is that you've already started by the time they finish that book and that course. So don't wait and try to become the biggest expert. Just go for it and learn as you go.
Eric, it's always fun having you here. I can't speak anymore.
Too many of those scotches.
Tell our audience a little bit about yourself and about your site and
Sure,
projects
so-
that you might have out there.
Sure. So as we mentioned in the beginning, Eric Rosenberg, I started my first of what became a side hustle that became my full-time job. It used to be called Narrow Bridge Finance. Now it's called Personal Profitability. It is a blog and a podcast where you can learn all about personal finance management, how to get out of debt, how to earn more money on the side is my biggest topic I'm focusing on right now, and really try to enhance your life through personal finance and money rather than having that be a crutch you fall back on. That led to the opportunity where I founded Narrow Bridge Media. That's my company where I do freelance writing and website development. So if you need help getting that website started, come narrowbridgemedia.com, shoot me a note. I might be able to help you out. And if not, still shoot me a note because I'd love to see what you're doing. You can find me on Twitter, Eric Profits, or facebook.com/narrowbridgefinance because they don't let you change your names, and personalprofitability.com.
Sounds great, Eric. And again, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight and
Thanks for having
giving
me.
us a lively episode as well as informing our audience. Like I said, it's always fun. And for everybody out there, thank you always for watching and listening. And until next week, be good with your money. Good night.
Thanks for joining us on the Money Mastermind Show. Get more information at moneymastermindshow.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on Google+.